Hi everyone, welcome to Vauld's official YouTube channel. So on today's video, we are going to understand a fairly important concept about blockchain, which is the difference between proof of work and proof of stake. So any explanation that you read on this topic, it gets fairly complicated very quickly. So I'll try to break down this topic in very easy to understand language. Why is it important for you to know the difference? Because many blockchain networks are coming up. They are saying that, you know what, we are much faster than Ethereum, we are much faster than Bitcoin because we are using this new consensus mechanism called as XYZ, right? So they will name it a new consensus mechanism and you will get super excited that, hey, this new thing is coming up. It's an Ethereum killer, it's a Bitcoin killer, it's XYZ killer. So yeah, please don't believe in that. Please understand these things at a conceptual level. It will help you make proper investment decisions. So let us get the discussion started, and first and foremost, let us understand what is the meaning of proof of work, proof of stake, and why these things are required in the first place. So just to help you understand the flow of the story, so this is how it goes. So basically, if you consider any blockchain network, for example, if you consider Bitcoin or Ethereum, these are what? These are blockchain networks. They function very similar to internet, which is again a network, not necessarily a blockchain network, but it's a network. On internet, certain pieces of information, for example, blogs or websites, they are put and you are able to access those websites securely if those websites are not being hacked and your data is not getting hacked. So what is important on a network called as internet? That one, how developers are putting up the data, that is very important. How people are accessing that data is very important. And the network keeps on growing. More users have a friendly time using the network. All these things led to the better adoption of internet over the years. So something very similar is happening in Bitcoin and Ethereum, that these are blockchain networks. And what needs to happen on this blockchain network? That this block of data, whatever data users need to transact with or interact with, for example, if I'm sending you a Bitcoin and you are sending half a Bitcoin to your friend, then that's the data that will get put on these blocks. These blocks will then get verified and this data will eventually be put on the blockchain network, be it a Bitcoin network, be it an Ethereum network, be it a Solana network or a Cardano network. So I hope that this concept of using data and putting on data on the blockchain network is clear. Now let us move on to an important point, which is that, hey, if we are putting this data on this network, then how do we verify that it is not getting hacked? What are some of the mechanisms behind it? So let us have a very brief conversation on that point. So consider, for example, something like Bitcoin. There, the consensus mechanism. So consensus mechanism simply means that how are you verifying the data? What mechanism are you using to verify those transactions? That is called as consensus mechanism. So how is the data getting verified on a network like Bitcoin? They use something called as proof of work. How is the data that is getting put on Ethereum network? How does that get verified? It gets verified by a mechanism called as proof of work again. How does the data that gets put on Cardano gets verified? There is a mechanism called as proof of stake. So now this brings us to a normal question that, okay, what is the difference between proof of work, proof of stake, and why do we need so many different types of mechanisms? So proof of work in simple, easy to understand language means that whatever data is being put on the Bitcoin network, it's get verified by miners. So there are a group of people called as miners and they verify this data for a reward called as the mining reward. So in order to get this reward, what they need to do is that they need to show proof of work. And that is the reason why Bitcoin's consensus mechanism is called as the proof of work consensus mechanism. So what happens in this proof of work mechanism is fairly simple. That let's say that this is a block of data that needs to go on Bitcoin network. Then miners who want reward for verifying this piece of data, they will raise their hand. They will say that, you know what, I'm going to verify this block of data. They start putting in and churning numbers on the computer and they try to solve a puzzle. Whoever solves that puzzle or whichever miner solves that puzzle, they get a reward. So for example, hypothetically speaking, they will receive like 0.00000001 Bitcoin. So that's a happy reward. Miner is happy. Why? Because he or she has received a reward. Network is happy. Why? Because the data got verified. And the user of that network is happy because they get to make a verified transaction. And as a result, the network keeps on running smoothly and people keep on using a network such as Bitcoin. So you'll say this seems like a great happy story. Then why do we need proof of stake to begin with? So the reason there is fairly simple, that proof of work, for example, is a very slow process. Why is it a slow process? Because the way proof of work is designed, we don't need to understand the design aspect of it, but the way proof of work functions is that miners need to bid each other out, they need to solve puzzles, they need to display accuracy. So of course, this will eat a lot of electricity. It will be a slower process and it increases competition among miners. So the bottom line is that A, this process wastes a lot of electricity, and second, and more importantly, it slows down the network. For example, Bitcoin as a network has a processing speed of roughly 7 to 10 transactions per second, which is a very slow network. If you go to Ethereum, it has roughly 15 to 20 as the transaction per second. But if you go to proof of stake consensus mechanism, for example, if you go to Cardano or Avalanche, they have much higher processing speeds. For example, Avalanche has a processing speed of more than 4,500 transactions per second. So this brings us to the second concept, that what is proof of stake? And is it here to stay? Okay. So in order to understand proof of stake, you need to imagine yourself to be an equity owner of a company. So let's assume that you are an angel investor and you have invested in a company X and you have taken 25% of equity in this company by paying $1 million, hypothetically speaking. Now, since you have invested $1 million in this company, you would always be on a lookout and you would want to favor this company and you would be considerate about the fact that your investment does not go to zero. So you would do everything in your power, support the startup, do good things in it, and definitely you are not going to act against this startup in normal logical circumstances. So that is where the proof of stake mechanism comes into the picture. That, for example, imagine a blockchain network like Cardano. Again, the objective is fairly simple, that there are blocks of data that A, need to get verified, and B, they need to get put up on this blockchain network. So here the verification mechanism is called as the proof of stake mechanism. And what happens in proof of stake mechanism is that in order to process the transaction, you need to own a stake in Cardano. So how do you own a stake in Cardano? You own a stake in Cardano by buying something called as ADA coins, right? If you have ADA coins and if you have big chunk of ADA coins, then you become something called as a validator. So you are the ones responsible for validating transaction. The more number of ADA coins that you have, the more stake you will have and more chances you have of validating all the transactions or blocks of data that are coming onto the network. So that is the primary difference between proof of stake and proof of work. Now let's quickly understand some of the salient differences between proof of stake and proof of work. So first and foremost, in proof of work, we have miners and there are mining rewards. So every time a block of data is processed by a miner, he or she ends up getting a reward in the form of Bitcoin or Ethereum, whichever network the mining is happening. If you juxtapose this with proof of stake, on proof of stake, what happens is that it's very simple, that you need to have a stake and you are buying a stake. If you have a stake, only then you can become a validator. There are no miners on proof of stake mechanism. So this is the first key difference. The second key difference is that in terms of transaction speed, proof of stake has been proven as a much better mechanism. It is faster. For example, protocols like Avalanche, Solana, Cardano are much faster compared to something like Ethereum and Bitcoin, which are in turn based on proof of work mechanism. Now comes the third function, which are negative externalities. These are negative impact of proof of work versus proof of stake. So when we talk about proof of work mechanism, the negative impact of proof of work is that it consumes a lot of electricity and it is less energy efficient. In fact, in order to execute proof of work mechanism, there are entire mining farms that have been created. And in China, at one point in time, there used to be acres and acres of these mining farms that used to be there, and they used to process Bitcoin transactions in order to get block rewards. So of course you would have a question that, okay, then why is it that people even talk about proof of work? Why they do not just simply migrate to proof of stake? So here you need to know a couple of key points. So first and foremost, whatever new blockchains are being developed, they are already proof of stake or are deploying advanced level consensus mechanism, it is primarily Bitcoin and Ethereum that are still on proof of work. Why? Why is that? Simply because of the fact that Bitcoin and Ethereum grew quite a lot. Now they are finding it hard to migrate from proof of work to proof of stake. So this is the first key problem. In fact, Ethereum is moving on to proof of stake from proof of work currently as we speak. Second related point that you need to know is the fact that if we talk about proof of work, yes, it is less energy efficient, but it is more secure compared to other consensus mechanism. In order to hack a network like Bitcoin, you need to control 51% of miners, which is an extremely difficult thing to do. But on the flip side, proof of stake consensus protocols are slightly more centralized. It does not mean that proof of stake mechanisms are unsecure. No, they are not. They are still quite fairly secure, but it is traditionally believed that proof of work consensus mechanism from security point of view are more secure than proof of stake. Now you will have a natural question that is proof of stake better or is proof of work better? Honestly, we can't say that. It's very, very difficult to outline just based on one single factor that which blockchain is better. It is like me asking you that, hey, is Elon Musk better or is Bill Gates better? You might say that, you know what, probably Elon Musk knows more about business. That might be your opinion, but some other person might say that, you know what, probably Bill Gates, he knows more about social impact. So on a social impact dimension, Bill Gates knows more. So point I'm trying to drive home is that a blockchain cannot be compared just on one parameter, which is the consensus mechanism, be it proof of work, proof of stake. But yes, it's a fairly important parameter. Now, it is often touted that Solana is going to kill Ethereum or Ethereum is going to crushed by Cardano. Okay, that is not entirely true because a blockchain would have several features. It will have certain rate of adoption. It will have certain use cases. So for example, if you compare the use case of Bitcoin with something like Cardano, Cardano is being built to power up the dApps ecosystem or decentralized application ecosystem. That is the primary functionality of Cardano. So therefore, it needs faster processing speed in terms of its TPS. But right now, the primary functionality of Bitcoin is as an asset class. Yes, it is providing an additional layer of utility by building on the layer 2 protocol on it, which is called as the Lightning Network. But the primary utility of Bitcoin is to act as a hedge against the increased currency printing. And it is trying to position itself now, or rather people are positioning Bitcoin as an alternate asset class. So when you are making investment in any blockchain technology, please understand the basic fact that every blockchain technology is designed with a very different viewpoint. Some blockchains are designed to be very high in terms of speed. Some blockchains are being designed to be very decentralized in nature. Some blockchains like XRP Ripple are designed to be centralized in nature. So you need to understand this utility component first. Which brings me to the final point that we talk a lot about the fact that Solana is going to kill Ethereum one day, and it is termed as Ethereum killer. But if you think about it, the primary utility of Solana is to power up the gaming ecosystem. So new gaming metaverses are coming up, new NFTs in the gaming space is coming up, and a bunch of other gaming related ecosystems are coming up. So Solana powers up that. Now ask yourself that would Solana need a higher speed or would Solana need a lower speed if it is dealing in the gaming ecosystem? The answer would be fairly obvious that yes, it would need fairly high speed, and therefore it runs on a consensus mechanism called as proof of history, which is a slightly more complex topic, which I will speak about on our subsequent topics. But I hope this video gave you clarity in terms of understanding the difference between proof of work and proof of stake, and accordingly you can start making your investment decisions based on the blockchain networks that you like, and for that you can check out Vauld as a platform. Thank you so much, and I will see you the next time.